Hi, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Al-Najjar. I'm the Customer Success Director here at Marketplace.city. If my Zoom profile looks like Chris Foreman, my boss, please ignore that. I'm using his license today, but really glad that you're here. One thing that we wanted to talk about, given that we often are showing the self-service market data that many of our customers are focused on, who are the competitors in a given market, what are their contracts, pricing, and such like that. We wanted to kind of resurface, especially as we had a major new project close, our full end-to-end procurement process, which is, a smaller subset of our client base utilizes, but they're really sort of our power users. They combine that market data upfront to a full managed end-to-end procurement for those bigger, more complex projects that they could really use that additional help with. So the one that I'm going to briefly speak to today was a CAD RMS project, which stands for Computer-Aided Dispatch and Records Management System. That's the kind of core police functionality of dispatch operator at a computer identifying where an incident is located, which units are going to respond to it, and take that data into the ultimate records management system that keeps their investigative files in order, combines the incident data with other relevant investigative data retroactively as well. So in early 2024, our partner Aurora, Illinois, which is one of our power users that uses not only the data subscription, but that full end-to-end procurement as well, came to us with interest in modernizing their CAD RMS system. They already had one, but there was the contract was expiring. There were a lot of issues with it, especially with keeping it updated and with integrations. They wanted us to identify what else is on the market and run that full procurement. So we actually had a kickoff in January 2024, but we got that solicitation out to the market in March of 2024. That process involved, and that was one that I was intimately involved in, many meetings with a wide variety of internal teams, from the police department, the unique needs of the fire department, and IT that would ultimately be managing the entire system as well. Yes, we capture a lot of requirements, but we're not just populating a 1,000 row spreadsheet and setting that out to the market. Our goal is to put a lot of thought into the question design. For example, what are the city's priorities as relates to cloud versus on-premises, which is, for public safety technology, a recurring question. What needs do the dispatchers have for command line interface, which is kind of the conventional format of dispatching, or are they interested in something a little bit more modernized? Are there programmable hotspots? These are kind of specific questions in amongst the usual questions of experience and pricing and so on. But we, ask these specific questions with follow-ups, conditional prompts, and ask for examples of interfaces to really try to bring in as much relevant information as possible to our client, in this case, the Aurora Public Safety Departments. However, bringing in all that information, they ultimately had 10 responses, which for a large specialized piece of software like this, which we thought was great, we want to make it, actually usable. We don't want anyone to get swamped in the data. So we, kind of build a dimensionalized analysis of the data. So this is an example of just those summaries where you're having key documentation hyperlinked within. You are having explicit highlights of where there might be differences or gaps in functionality between different providers, places of experience, solution hosting, which, as I mentioned, was kind of one of the key determinants here, that they wanted to move away from on-prem systems and into the cloud, which is something that's been more newly offered from some of the leading public safety providers, whether or not there's any specific hardware equipment, and a sample implementation timeline. This is a fraction of the 50 or 60 questions that we asked of these vendors, and you could quickly click through if you wanted to get into the detail here. But what we're trying to do is make sense of that upfront for our partners, and that able to move 10 potential responses to quickly filter on, okay, we had 10, but based on these 2 are above our price ceiling, these 3 don't have the experience in our state that we want. Now we're down to 5 that we can actually go on a deep dive with and cut through to those specific sub-datas that are filterable, and kind of bring momentum to it, as opposed to making it sort of just a wash in a miscellaneous amount of data. We also build a e-procurement interface that companies are responding with. We manage the publication of it, the kind of notifying vendors in this industry that it's available and that they may be worth throwing their hat in the ring. But we try to build it in such a way that actual thought needs to be put in from the vendor to respond to it and to respond to those conditional questions and those follow-ups, rather than have 50-page PDF files, may or may not have been AI generated, just sort of thrown over to your team, where the relevant data points of, like, for example, cloud hosting could be on page 10 for one vendor and 42 for the next, and matching that data side by side is key for us. So after that dimensionalized data, we go into demo days. We actually had site visits to departments that were hosting these particular versions of these softwares. We kind of continue to refine pricing, as you see here, from their sort of initial offer to what integrations would cost, what implementation would look like, what's included, what's not. There was a uniqueness here that the APD was kind of most interested in whether or not they would do a full combined Mark 43 option, or a dispatching system from Tyler and a records management system from Axon. And ultimately, we gamed out a couple different scenarios. And obviously, I'm not going to read all this for you today, but this was ultimately rolled into, as you can tell, our final briefing packet that, in 10 slides shows a council member or someone who, had not been clued into this project from the outset, what the issue was, what we were trying to solve, the process that went about it, who responded, why they were eliminated, and ultimately defending this, as you can see, quite expensive purchase over the course of 5 years in this case. So again, I just wanted to show sort of an example of how we can help with these larger, more complicated procurements that include that market data aspect upfront, but then match it with some of that sort of detailed project management as well. We're going to drop the link to the actual case study on our website if you'd like to read the written material. It includes a quote from Commander Handel, which kind of describes that ultimately we were able to help the kind of officers and from the police and fire departments to kind of spend more time focusing on their core responsibilities for public safety rather than the procurement itself, because we were able to help them with that. And yes, I see in the chat, the population of Aurora is about 180,000, second largest city in Illinois. But yes, feel free to review the case study, follow up with any questions. I'm more than happy to answer any immediate questions that have come up since I started sharing that.